Great to be with you. Just a reminder, I'm giving you complete permission to share these videos with anyone you think that they might help. In fact, if you do get this information into the hands of someone who will benefit from it, I bless you for being part of the solution instead of part of the problem. You see, I believe that together we can make the best of an incredibly difficult situation. So let me cut straight to the chase. Mental skills are probably the most underrated of them all, despite the accumulated wisdom of the ages pointing out their ability to change absolutely everything. So the first thing we need to understand is this: thoughts create feelings. Here's a quick illustration. If I run across the room and crash tackle you to the floor, you're entitled to think that I was being cruel, aggressive, or nasty. But if a truck comes through the window behind you and demolishes the chair you were sitting in, you might take the option to feel like I saved your life. The two broken ribs and the physical pain remain exactly the same. But with one set of thoughts, you're creating a world of pain, and in the other, you're creating a sense of gratitude despite the pain. And this is a basic premise behind or underneath the expression that we each create our own reality. So another illustration might help. Trump is running for a re-election. The people who think Trump in the White House for another 4 years is a good thing, those thoughts create pleasant, reassuring, and calming feelings. For the people who think Trump is a disaster, these thoughts are alarming, stressful, and agitating. So what I'm wanting to point out here is that the event or the action or the triggering situation is basically meaningless until we ascribe one to it. It's this interpreting of situations as good or bad when they're actually neither that creates the dramas in our life. So here's one last illustration. Is the rain good or bad? Well, if you've got an outdoor wedding planned for this afternoon, then obviously the rain falls into the bad category. But if you live out in the country and you need your tanks filled up, then you'll be of the opinion that the rain is the best thing that's happened in the last 6 months. Obviously, the rain itself is neither good nor bad. The facts are, the rain is simply water falling out of the sky. So the first order of business is to get your thinking straightened out and free of what the scientists call bias. So when we've got a subconscious bias, it's generally not obvious to us, but it's definitely swaying our thinking and therefore our feelings, and that flows into our actions. So watching people's reactions to the coronavirus readily reveals this biased approach. A bias towards what could go wrong has the owners of that attitude imagining the worst. And the consequences of those kinds of thoughts are panic buying, scaremongering, punch-ups in the supermarkets, and pensioners getting pushed to the ground. Meanwhile, a bias towards "she'll be right, mate" has the owners of that attitude gathering in such numbers on Bondi Beach the other day that the cops had to be called to send them home. These people were obviously breaking the law and didn't mind doing so. So the first bit of thinking straight is to understand that you can choose your thoughts. Now, with the illustrations I've used so far, you'll have found yourself leaning towards one side or the other. But you don't have to do that. That's just your automatic, reactive, or reflexive practice response. Rule 1 in mental skills is choose your thoughts. Don't let them run the show, because they will just do what they've always done. And you know that if you do what you've always done, you're going to get what you've always got. So the second chunk of mental skills is to understand that the reverse of thoughts create feelings is also true. Let me say them in quick succession so I can kind of compare them. Thoughts create feelings, but feelings create thoughts. By way of illustration, if you suffer a broken relationship ending up in divorce and an ugly property settlement, the chances are you feel pretty low. These emotions, which might be grouped into a bunch that includes failure, hopelessness, loneliness, guilt, shame, and a host of others, are generally going to very negatively influence your thoughts. It's hard to be thinking, hey, I'll just move countries, start a new business and change the world, when you feel unmotivated, maybe even humiliated, or even like there's no longer any point to anything. Now, if you get that, then you can see we need a whole lesson on emotions and how to work with them. That's both yours and other people's. So that's what's in the next video. Meanwhile, let me reinforce the idea that our thinking affects how we're feeling, and how we feel affects our thinking. In summary, I'm saying choose your thoughts. If negative thoughts do keep turning up, gently push them out the door by returning to the thoughts you choose by verbalizing it. Yep, I'm saying it's a massive value in speaking the thoughts that you wish to reinforce. If that's going to create conflict in your house, there's always a shower. The next key in mental skills territory is to understand what you control and what you can't. You can wish or hope that the coronavirus didn't happen, but that's completely out of your control. You can fundamentally disagree about how the government is handling their response, but what they do is once again totally out of your control. You can bag the panic buyers until you go hoarse, but what they choose to do is out of your control. In my 35 years of working with people to be the best that they can be, this is where I've seen the most energy wasted. If it's out of your control, and we're in a set of circumstances where there's a lot more than usual that you have zero influence over, the most effective mental strategy is to ask yourself, what do you have control over? Obviously, that's confining your energy expenditure to what you can actually have some influence over or what you can control. When it comes to that, you'll probably find it necessary to scold your ruminating brain. There's no doubt that most of us go over and over stuff that, even if we could figure it out, would actually get us nowhere. Just ask a parent if they've lost sleep over what their kids are up to while they go out, and you'll understand that we easily revert to wrestling with an impossible concept, knowing that there's nothing we can do about it. The reality is that the parent has to wait until 3 a.m. to be woken up by the kid coming home or the police knocking on the door, but nothing they think, feel, or worry about is actually going to change that end result. In extreme cases, the rattled, strung-out parent greets a kid coming home at 3 a.m. with, "You've had me up all night worrying," which is only partially true. Because you see, they have been up all night worrying, but it wasn't the kid doing that to them, they were doing it to themselves. Knowing the difference between what is within your control and what is not is absolutely paramount. As the Greek philosopher Epictetus said, it is only after you face up to this fundamental rule and learn to distinguish between what you can and cannot control that inner tranquility and outer effectiveness become possible. Time spent worrying about things you can't control is not only wasteful, it's actually harmful. Concerning yourself with things outside your control only creates frustration, anxiety, and torment because it has zero impact on the outcome. Therefore, we need to distinguish between what we can and what we can't control. That's step one as far as control is concerned. Then we need to focus our energy down onto those things that we can change. Like everything in the mental and emotional world, that's going to take practice, and the practice will make you perfect. I can say it, but you'll have to practice it over and over if it's going to be useful as a tool. So one last word on that. Speaking your intentions out loud, telling someone you care about, is perhaps the best form of this kind of practice. But once you get this kind of thing in place, you'll bless the day you started to make the effort because it pays off for the rest of your life. Okay, we're nearly there. Next cab off the rank in the mental skills area is deciding who you want to be. The reality is that we'll go through these very difficult times. It will definitely take longer than anyone wants it to, and it could be months or years, but things will eventually return to some kind of normality. At that time, you'll be looking back on how you handled it. You'll either be regretting some of your words and deeds, or you'll be proud of yourself. To get into the spot where you feel you did well, you'll have to maintain a specific focus. Who you are during this time matters as much as what you do. To make that work, you're going to need a frame of reference for your decisions because we're moving into uncharted territory and you won't be able to just do what you've always done and assume that you're choosing the best option. You'll need an internal guidance mechanism because the externals are going to become unrecognizable. That mechanism is your values. What matters to you in terms of your character, your integrity, your values, your substance, will all need to be brought to the surface and demonstrated if you want to be a walking, talking example of your deepest beliefs. You'll need to be ultra clear on how you want to show up in the world. So think, what would my best self say and what would my best self do? When you get that answer, act decisively on it because it's you bringing your core to the surface, and that's what we all need. Next, consider your mental food. What you allow to enter your mind should be one of your greatest priorities because, as the old computer analogy used to say, garbage in equals garbage out. It's probably vital that you limit your news consumption. Now, sure, there are things that you need to know, but my friend on the inside of the media has told me that they work on a 6-minute repeat cycle. Now, you'll already have worked that out if you've ever watched the rubbish that they call breakfast television. Now, in my gym, that stuff is up on the wall while I'm pounding away. And because I've got my personal headset on, I see instead of hear. And every few minutes, the same film footage gets shown again with the same captions on it and the host rabbiting on breathlessly about some aspect of the drama. Their body language and facial expressions have been telling me for 40 years that the world is ending tomorrow. Now, a once-a-day update is as much as most people need, but I'd put money on the fact that that same 24-hourly frequency is more than a lot of people actually need, want, or could productively use. The news is not your friend. While we're on the subject of brain food, social media should also probably be severely restricted. The unrestricted hysteria that your friends are prepared to dish up as factual information is at least 90% unlikely to be true or usable or constructive from any point of view, but is definitely going to disturb your equilibrium. That said, social media is great for keeping up to date with those who are not close to you and has got the potential to be used powerfully and positively. Just remember that the trolls and the keyboard warriors are out there in force waiting for an opportunity to pull someone, anyone, down. If they pick on you, it can be devastating. So maybe your absence from the social media pages is a great defense. When you're on your pages, because I know that me telling you to stay away from them doesn't mean you will, when you're on those pages, for all of our sakes, only make positive or useful contributions. While we're at it, check that your information sources are based on factual reporting of solid intel instead of opinion, innuendo, and unresearched anecdotal stories. Finally, consider a set of affirmations that you repeat as a way of forcing your mind to accept the way that you want it to work. Most people assume that the voice in their head is just them talking to themselves, but the evidence is that it's more like a radio commentator just babbling on mindlessly. So you might want to spend some time training your brain to do what you tell it to do instead of wondering where it finds all that garbage to endlessly repeat to you. In summary, boils down to this. Thoughts create feelings, so monitor your thought processes and keep them positive, uplifting, and helpful. Also, feelings create thoughts, so be aware of your inner conflicts, worries, and catastrophizing. Turn away from negative thoughts by bringing your mind to the positives. Choose your thoughts rather than let them be reactive. Actively distinguish between what you can control and what you can't. Focus on what you can control and put your efforts into that. Choose who you really want to be and act accordingly. Do that by keeping your values top of mind and using them when making decisions. Limit your news consumption to the bare minimum. Stay away from social media as far as you can. If you can't resist, be positive. Speak affirmatively and supportively. And don't turn yourself into a genius by moaning about mongrels and dickwits, because you're not. Just a reminder, I'm giving you permission to share these videos with anyone you think they might help. In fact, if you do get this information into the hands of someone who will benefit from it, I'll bless you for being part of the solution instead of part of the problem. I believe that together we can make the best of an incredibly difficult situation. That's it. See you in the lesson on emotions.